Welcome to Ask Brian, expert answers in real science to answer your nutrition and fitness questions. Today's show is all about vitamin D. Ever since I wrote that email last week regarding vitamin D, I've gotten a lot of questions about it. Carlos asks, does it matter what vitamin D you take? And also, how much should you take? A member who goes by the pseudonym Curious asks, I've always thought vitamin D comes from the sun. How can we absorb it in pill form? Finally, we have a question from Dak asking me to comment on the risk of vitamin D in pancreatic cancer and whether we'll soon find out that vitamin D is the new vitamin E. For those of you who don't know what Dak is talking about, vitamin E was all the rage in nutrition circles about 10 years ago. There were a lot of wild claims made about it, and today vitamin D seems to be attracting the same sorts of wild claims. Whether these claims will actually be proven wrong is something that science will have to answer over time, but today I can at least offer an explanation of why I don't think we're dealing with a whole new vitamin E situation. Antioxidants work together, and more importantly, they work together like a reverse bucket brigade. In a normal bucket brigade, water is passed down the line to the fire, eventually putting it out. In a reverse bucket brigade, fire is passed down the line backwards towards the water. The fact that we breathe oxygen means we're always going to be developing compounds called reactive oxygen species, which cause damage to our cells by stealing electrons from them. Antioxidants help combat this by donating electrons to these reactive oxygen species, thereby quenching them and rendering them harmless. However, when an antioxidant donates an electron, then it needs a new one, and so another antioxidant down the line donates one of its electrons. This happens again and again down the line until eventually the final antioxidant is simply excreted into the urine, which is the river that we're pouring the fire into. Vitamin E is just one antioxidant in that chain, and taking too much of it is like putting 10 people in one spot in a bucket brigade. It doesn't help the body pass the fire down the line, and it could cause even greater problems because now we've metaphorically set the bucket brigade volunteers on fire, since they don't have enough volunteers to pass the fire to next. The two antioxidants which have been lightly associated with cancer are vitamin E and beta-carotene, both of which are fat-soluble, meaning they stay in our body a long time and can build up. Antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C do not have this problem. They're only associated with cancer when taken in large doses individually from supplements. If you get them from food, the evidence suggests they're going to protect you from cancer. Why? Because there would never be the only antioxidants in the food you're eating. You'll supply the firefighting volunteers to every part of the line and not just one. So why will this not be a problem with vitamin D? Because vitamin D is a hormone, not an antioxidant. And even though all hormones have complex reactions with each other, there's always an optimal range for each hormone. What's really in question for vitamin D is what that range is, not how much we should take. If you visit your doctor and they follow current guidelines, they will usually accept anything over 20 nanograms per milliliter as an appropriate amount. This amount has been shown to be sufficient for most people in terms of bone health. However, numerous studies in the last 10 years have shown that vitamin D is important for more than just the bones. And even in terms of bone health, most vitamin D researchers think that 30 nanograms per milliliter is a more appropriate number. For other health effects, most of the research demonstrates effects beginning at 35 nanograms per milliliter, with optimal levels being between 40 and 50. Some advocate for even more, but there really isn't a lot of research demonstrating that this is necessary. As far as safety is concerned, toxicity only occurs at levels above 150 nanograms per milliliter. This is extremely rare and only really witnessed when taking only over 30,000 IU, that's international units, every day for months in a row. This sort of thing usually only happens from industrial mishaps, such as adding too much vitamin D accidentally to the milk. We might find with more research that we only need 20 nanograms per milliliter, but I really don't think it's likely given the research that we currently have. In terms of vitamin D and pancreatic cancer risk, what we have is some preliminary data which suggests risk is higher and some data which suggests risk is lower. There is a similar association with prostate cancer based on the same studies. In one study on vitamin D in prostate cancer, high serum levels of vitamin D were only associated with the cancer in the summer, when high levels are more likely to be due to sun exposure. In a second study, high levels of vitamin D were most highly associated with prostate cancer in men who also had high levels of physical activity. Generally speaking, individuals with high levels of physical activity also get more sun. It gets a little confusing here because other studies have shown that countries which get more UVB radiation have less of these types of cancers. I can't say for sure why this is, but I can speculate that some sun exposure is good and will boost vitamin D levels high enough to be preventative of cancer, but getting too much sun will cause other types of damage which increases risk. In any case, there is not yet any hard and fast data which shows vitamin D to either be protective or dangerous in terms of cancer. All we have are some studies which are building towards a consensus. Most of those studies are positive, and considering how much less sun we get today than we used to, I think it's safe to err on the side of taking a vitamin D supplement. Normally, radiation from the sun catalyzes a reaction in the skin which converts precursor vitamin D molecules into the same type of vitamin D we get from a pill, called cholecalciferol. All of vitamin D's various forms are originally derived from cholesterol, which is a lipid or a fat, and like any other lipid, we can absorb it from food sources as well. This is why we can get vitamin D from a supplement today and not just the sun. While our skin can create the molecule itself, we can also create that same molecule in a lab and put it into a pill. Once swallowed, the vitamin D is easily absorbed and put into circulation, same as it would be if it came from our skin. When we look for vitamin D in the store, we're usually presented with two options: vitamin D2, also known as ergocalciferol, and vitamin D3, or cholecalciferol again. If you're vegan, then vitamin D2 is the vegan-friendly option as it's synthesized by exposing certain types of mushrooms to ultraviolet radiation. Vitamin D3, on the other hand, is produced by exposing sheep's wool to UV radiation. If you're not vegan, then I recommend vitamin D3 because research shows it's more potent and more predictable. It consistently raises serum vitamin D levels. Vitamin D2 works, but you may need to take more, and it's difficult to say how much more. In either case, a good starting dose is 2,000 IU per day, and that's considering all sources. I highly recommend getting a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test done to get your serum levels tested so you can fine-tune that dose, because you may actually need more. That's it for Ask Brian today. If you have any more questions about vitamin D, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any other nutrition or fitness questions, you know I want to hear them, so visit the Ask Brian main page to submit them.